Will the PS5 Pro be announced at TGS? But first, Sony has announced that a new system software beta for the PlayStation 5 is set to release imminently, bringing with it some all-new features that players can expect to see in the console's next major firmware update. This announcement comes right after the PS5's July 2024 firmware update went live on July 23rd. The beta introduces a new feature that allows users to create personalized 3D audio profiles based on their responses to a series of sound tests. By answering questions about the perceived direction and movement of sounds, the PS5 can generate a custom audio profile tailored to each user's preferences. This profile is expected to enhance the immersive audio experience, particularly when using headphones or earbuds, by improving the ability to track sounds in various games. To create a personalized 3D audio profile, users can navigate to the settings menu, then select sound greater than 3D audio, headphones. The beta also includes new remote play settings, giving users more control over who can access their PS5 for remote streaming. Players can now determine whether friends or family members logged into their accounts on the same PS5 can utilize the console for remote play, or if they will require their own system. These settings can be adjusted by going to Settings, System, Remote Play, which will display a list of users currently signed into the PS5, along with switches to permit or deny access. Additionally, the beta introduces an adaptive charging feature for the latest DualSense wireless controllers, released in 2023 when the PS5 is in rest mode. This feature regulates the power delivered to the controllers based on their battery level, and it will also cease power supply to the USB port if no controller is connected. So let's get back to the Pro. Tokyo Game Show 2024 is scheduled for September 26 to 29, 2024, taking place at Makuhari Messe in Chiba, Japan. Other platform holders confirmed to be in attendance include Capcom, Bandai Namco, Konami, Sega, and Square Enix. So the big question, will Sony announce the PS5 Pro then? Crying? Maybe. People are expecting them to. It is very plausible they will. But knowing Sony, they could also not show it. Why? Well, they could also have their own PlayStation showcase in early October, just like last year. It all depends on when they want to launch it. If they want to launch it in November, then they might announce it in early October in their own showcase. Or their big showcase of the year could be at TGS. Two possibilities here, but for sure, it's coming. An interesting comment: my wish list is to play games at native 4K at 60 FPS. Also, to have PSSR and to look similar to NVIDIA's DLSS 3. Question: if even RTX 4090 is not powerful enough to do 8K 60 FPS, what about the PS5 Pro, which is equivalent to the 4070? Yeah, DLSS 3 quality would be nice because what I've seen from FSR 3 didn't really impress me. As for the 8K topic on a console, I don't even think we're going to get 8K with the PS6. We don't need 8K. People can't even tell the difference between 8K and 4K. Just go watch Linus Tech Tips video on 8K versus 4K gaming. The results might surprise you. As for the PS5 Pro being as powerful as the 4070, look, if you're just going to compare stats, in numbers and teraflops, the 4070 will probably outperform the PS5 Pro. In real-life practice, that's a different story. A PS5 Pro is more future-proof, and a game 4 years from now will look and run better on a PS5 Pro than on a 4070. Why? Optimization. Don't believe me? Look at what the PS4 did with The Last of Us Part 2 and God of War Ragnarok. Try running those games on a graphics card that came out at the same time as the PS4. It won't happen. We don't get the sharpest, shiniest games on the planet on consoles. What I love about them is that we buy one once every 5 years, and we don't have to worry about checking system requirements for every game that comes out. And we don't need to tweak the settings much before starting a new game. Another funny question I want to address actually comes from Digital Foundry. They asked, how are you going to promote the PS5 Pro? What's the marketing for it for the masses? 4K? Ray tracing? 60 FPS? Come on guys, Sony can go to my channel and get free marketing ideas. Here's what Sony can say. PS5 is amazing. We gave people the option for 4K, ray tracing, and 60 FPS. But with the choice between native 4K at 30 FPS, or 1440p or 1800p at 60 FPS performance mode. With the PS5 Pro, you'll be able to play all games in fidelity mode, but instead of 30 FPS, you'll be able to push it to 60 FPS. We have a dedicated ray tracing GPU and extra dedicated RAM just for that. I'm sure if Mark Cerny comes on stage, he'll know what to say. The thing that people are worried about is what games they will show off because, let's be honest, they need to show something, especially for marketing purposes. As much as I love PlayStation, and as much as I'm defending PS5 a lot of the time, I can't deny that we are in dire need of fresh PS5 exclusives. Another question I get, and actually I get this a lot, is about my optimism. And yeah, I'm a bit more optimistic than others, probably because I do the research and my expectations are realistic. I don't expect the console to have super ray tracing in native 4K and run 120 FPS. In my opinion, if they show off the PS5 Pro and some awesome new games that will take advantage of it, I will lose it. My only frustration will be, will I be able to snag one early? Will the scalpers jump on it immediately? And will I be able to afford it? But if they don't show off a bunch of games that make me feel the urgency of getting one, I could hold off for a year until GTA 6 comes out. And speaking of GTA 6, here's what an ex-dev had to say. Former Rockstar Games developer Obi Vermij has been sharing his thoughts on Grand Theft Auto 6 and how he thinks it's going to go down with fans, and he believes that it's going to be the best game out there. Even if it could initially disappoint some, Vermij isn't involved with GTA 6 as he left Rockstar Games back in 2009. However, before then, he spent almost 14 years as a technical director and played a large role in the programming of GTA 3 and 4, as well as Vice City and San Andreas. Needless to say, he's had a big impact on the Grand Theft Auto series as a whole, and he's got some thoughts on how the upcoming installment is looking right now based on its reveal trailer. In a new interview, Vermij clarifies that he has no inside information about the game, but he's thoroughly impressed with what we've seen. He notes that the trailer's beach scene, where each individual seems to have a unique animation, blows me away. However, he's not sure how much GTA 6 is really going to differ from the previous game in the series. I don't think it's going to be wildly different from GTA 5. I think maybe people might be a little disappointed on the first day, Vermij says, but it's still going to be the best game out there. Honestly, considering how high expectations are for the next installment, it does feel like there's a chance that some could end up disappointed, depending on what Rockstar is able to deliver, of course. Clearly, though, Vermij is optimistic. He also mentions that I love the Miami vibe, which he says suits GTA very well. For the time being, we're still in the dark about a lot of what's to come in GTA 6. We've still only seen one trailer, but we know that it's currently planned to launch on PS5 and Xbox Series sometime during fall 2025. Let's talk about Ubisoft for a bit. Contrary to online speculation and reports, Assassin's Creed Shadows is not the subject of heated debate among the Japanese government. Sankei reports that NHK Party representative Satoshi Hamada formally asked Japanese government ministries to comment on Assassin's Creed Shadows. Hamada reportedly cited concerns over historical inaccuracies featured in the new Ubisoft game. Responding, the Japanese Foreign Ministry said it simply wasn't their concern, while the Education Ministry offered a boilerplate response to Hamada, saying that a game shouldn't violate public order and morals. The Education Ministry statement further read that careful handling is required if there are suspicions of content that violates public order and morals. While some considered the exchange a big deal, Kanda University of International Studies lecturer Jeffrey J. Hall points out on Twitter that questions like Hamada's are more often performative than not. What's more, the NHK Party is so small it's virtually insignificant in the grand scheme of Japanese politics. The group's status as a political party was revoked earlier this year in January when the Atsu wing of the National Diet expelled 2 members. The Japanese Education Ministry's response is being viewed as something major when in reality it pertains to game releases that feature excessive violence or nudity. As per Hall, this line of thought saw Dead Space banned from release in Japan, for example, or more recently, the Callisto Protocol denied permission to release back in late 2022. Therefore, the Japanese Education Ministry likely isn't investigating Assassin's Creed Shadows anytime soon because it simply has no precedent for doing so, while the wider Japanese government has shown no interest whatsoever in entertaining Representative Hadama's questions. Ubisoft just recently apologized for causing concern among Assassin's Creed Shadows Japanese fans, writing that the game was continually evolving to perfect inaccuracies like flags and architecture up until launch. It also wrote that whether protagonists, even though Ubisoft has yet to officially confirm the existence of Far Cry 7, that hasn't stopped fans of the franchise from speculating on what the series has in store for its next release. Thanks to several high-profile leaks over the last year, gamers have been given a rough idea of what to expect from the open-world sequel, and one rumor in particular hints that the plot of Far Cry 7 could channel the franchise's past in a big way, with the series' 7th entry reportedly tasking players with rescuing their families from the clutches of kidnappers. The long-rumored sequel looks to share some serious similarities with fan-favorite Far Cry 3. According to Far Cry 7 story leaks from Insider Gaming, the sequel's plot centers around players fighting their way across a tropical island to rescue family members who've been kidnapped by members of a group known as the Sons of Truth. Making this task all the more challenging is the rumored introduction of a series' first-time limit to the campaign, leaving players battling the clock in addition to waves of enemies. However, while this new mechanic may make Far Cry 7 play differently than its predecessors, Helldivers, setting out to save loved ones from their crazed captors, should feel instantly familiar to Far Cry 3 fans. In 2012's Far Cry 3, players took control of protagonist Jason Brody as he set out to rescue his friends from the villainous Voss Montenegro and his band of pirates following a tropical vacation gone horribly wrong. While the game's story provided plenty of twists and turns, even introducing new enemy factions along the way, its straightforward setup provided the perfect jumping-off point for the chaos players would unleash throughout its runtime. While rumors suggest that players will be saving friends rather than family in Far Cry 7, the broad strokes of the story bear more than a passing resemblance to its predecessor. This isn't necessarily a bad thing for Far Cry 7, though. Far Cry 3 has already had a lasting impact on the franchise, with antagonist Voss' larger-than-life personality providing a template for future Far Cry villains, and its rescue-centric storyline could prove to be an equally valuable source of inspiration. By building on what worked with Far Cry 3's story while introducing some exciting new gameplay mechanics, Far Cry 7 could tip its hat to the series' past while simultaneously moving the franchise forward. Rather than just rehashing the plot of Far Cry 3 with a slightly different setting and calling it a day, leaks suggest that Ubisoft will introduce some interesting innovations with the series' 7th entry. Chief among these is a rumored time limit for Far Cry 7's campaign. This new mechanic may require players to be strategic when rescuing their family rather than running into every encounter with guns blazing like in previous games. Far Cry 7 will also reportedly allow players to interrogate enemy NPCs to try and track down their kidnapped family members. While this new mechanic may initially seem like something that would be a better fit for Ubisoft's iconic Splinter Cell series, introducing stealth action elements like this to Far Cry 7 would be a great way to shake up the franchise's sometimes repetitive gameplay. It could also help Far Cry 7 feel distinct from Far Cry 3 despite sharing some narrative similarities. And if Far Cry 7 can deliver a story equally as exciting as Far Cry 3's while also adding engaging new mechanics, it could be the series' most interesting new entry in years. Phantom Blade Zero is being described as S-game as a semi-open world game, which is to say that though it's not a fully open world experience, it will often put players in large, open maps with full or almost full freedom to explore. The game is set to feature parkour mechanics, which should make traversal across environments interesting, depending on how well they're designed. As per the developer, players can expect a variety of different areas, so hopefully exploration will remain engaging throughout the length of the experience. Speaking of which, Phantom Blade Zero's combat is not going to be a Souls-like. Rather than the genre's traditionally slow and deliberate brand of combat, Phantom Blade Zero will feature much faster and more offensive combat. Attacks are mapped to face buttons rather than shoulder buttons, combos are heavily important, animations and attack movements are often over the top and explosive, and even parries and blocks look incredibly aggressive. In addition to a primary weapon, which will always be a sword, players will also have access to a variety of secondary weapons, from ranged options to heavy melee weapons, so it seems like the game will offer plenty of choices on the battlefield. The game is set to feature parkour mechanics, which should make traversal across environments interesting, depending on how well they're designed. As per the developer, players can expect a variety of different areas, so hopefully exploration will remain engaging throughout the length of the experience. How long will Phantom Blade be? More often than not, developers tend to struggle with how long their game should be. How long is too long? How short is too short? With that in mind, how long is Phantom Blade Zero going to be? Well, on face value, it seems to be going for the right range, roughly 30 to 40 hours long, though there will still be plenty more to do beyond a regular playthrough to completion. That will include a robust endgame, a dungeon with roguelike elements, a boss rush option, multiple endings, and of course, plenty of side quests, hidden bosses, and other optional content. All in all, it looks like the game will have more than enough meat on its bones to keep you occupied for a long time, depending on how much you're willing to engage with it. Phantom Blade Zero is being billed primarily as a single-player experience, and though that is the case, it won't be an exclusively solo experience. S-Game has confirmed that the game will also feature multiplayer dungeons. Exactly how these will function remains to be seen. Will there be different co-op or PvP options? Will multiplayer dungeons have unique progression and rewards? All of that has yet to be detailed, but we do know that Phantom Blade Zero isn't going to be exclusively single-player. No microtransactions. Multiplayer offerings often tend to go hand-in-hand with microtransactions, so is that something that we'll have to be on the lookout for with Phantom Blade Zero as well? Thankfully, S-Game has confirmed that there will be no microtransactions in the game, which means all equipment, cosmetics, upgrades, and what have you will be unlocked through gameplay. Phantom Blade Zero is being developed on Unreal Engine 5, and while that isn't a magical switch to make a game a technical marvel, it does look like the developer is using the engine's toolset to great effect based on what we've seen so far. A launch date is not yet known. We don't even have a launch window yet, though whenever it does release, Phantom Blade Zero will be available on PS5 and PC. Can Xbox players expect the game at some point down the line? That remains to be seen. But S-Game has already revealed some tidbits, and there's reason to be impressed based on what little has been confirmed so far. For instance, it's been confirmed that on both PS5 and PC, the game will use hardware ray tracing. Meanwhile, on PS5, it will have two graphics modes at launch, one targeting 2K and 60 FPS, and one targeting 4K at 30 FPS. The studio says it's continuing to try and target 4K at 60 FPS, or at least 45 to 40 FPS in the latter mode, so things aren't quite set in stone there. And have you heard about the new Escalation of Freedom update coming to Helldivers 2 on August 6, 2024? This update is a big deal, and it might just be what the game needs to really take off. First off, we're getting a bunch of new enemies to keep things interesting. Imagine facing off against the Spore Charger and the Alpha Commander. These guys are new threats that will add fresh challenges. But that's not all. The Impaler from the original game is making a comeback, which is going to bring back some intense memories for longtime players. Plus, there are these new automaton enemies, like the rocket tank, which sounds like it's going to be a blast to battle against. The update isn't just about new enemies, though. It's adding new environmental hazards to make missions even more engaging. One of the coolest additions is a dark swamp area. It's going to have limited visibility, so you'll have to be on your toes and really work with your squad to navigate through it. This kind of tactical complexity is something players have been craving, and it should make every mission feel fresh and exciting. On top of that, there are new missions and objectives being added. This means we'll have a whole bunch of new challenges to dive into, keeping the game from getting stale and always giving us something new to conquer. Now let's talk about difficulty. The update is bringing in a new difficulty level called Super Helldive. This is going to be the ultimate test for players. If you can beat missions at this level, you're going to get some serious bragging rights. They haven't spilled the beans on what the rewards will be, but you can bet they'll be worth the effort. One of the most exciting parts of this update is the new griefing prevention system. If you've ever been unfairly kicked from a match, you know how frustrating that can be. With this update, if someone kicks you out, you'll start a new session as the host and keep all your loot. No more losing your hard-earned rewards because someone decided to troll you. This is a big step in making the game fairer and more enjoyable for everyone. Arrowhead Game Studios isn't stopping there. They're rolling out various quality-of-life improvements based on player feedback. This includes fixes to the social menu and other gameplay mechanics. They're really listening to what the community wants and making the changes needed to keep players happy. This Escalation of Freedom update shows that Arrowhead is committed to evolving Helldivers 2 and addressing player concerns. By introducing exciting new content, challenging gameplay, and fairer mechanics, they're breathing new life into the game. This update could be the turning point that keeps players engaged and brings new fans into the fold. So, if you've been on the fence about Helldivers 2, now's the perfect time to jump in and experience all the awesome new changes. I was never really into Warframe. It started as a free-to-play game on the PS5, and my brother used to play it a lot, but I just couldn't get into it. Over the years, though, that game kept growing and evolving, building a massive fan base. I can appreciate how it stuck around and kept getting better. Fast forward to today, and I see this pop up in my YouTube feed, Warframe 1999. Intrigued, I watched the trailer and it really grabbed my attention. Set to launch in winter 2024, this expansion takes players back to the year 1999, following a character named Arthur Nightingale on his quest to find Dr. Intrati. The expansion introduces Arthur and 5 new proto-frames. Some of these proto-frames will be familiar to players, but there's one that's entirely new. Along the way, players will encounter bizarre new threats, making for an exciting and fresh experience. Expansion theme. The storyline delves into events predating the Old War, mixing elements of the past and future within the Warframe universe. It's a fascinating way to expand the game's lore and give players a deeper understanding of its history. New Warframe. The update will also feature a new Warframe named Site-09. Site-09 is known for its tactical precision and marksman abilities. An extensive gameplay demo was showcased at TennoCon 2024, highlighting the unique aspects of the expansion and its narrative. Why did Warframe 1999 catch my eye? For one, I think there's a shift happening in gaming right now. Games like this are bringing back the fun, the absurd, and the ridiculous. And let's be honest, the 90s vibe really hits hard. The soundtrack alone gives such a nostalgic feeling, reminding me of the good old days of gaming. It's not just about the gameplay or the new features, it's about how it makes you feel. There's something incredibly appealing about diving into a game that embraces its roots while pushing the boundaries of what's possible.